My sister slapped me across the face in front of 200 wedding guests because I refused to hand over my penthouse, the home I had bled for. Little did she know a judge was watching everything unfold at her grand, glittering ceremony. It all started at Sabrina's lavish wedding, a spectacle of wealth and ego at the Ritz-Carlton, where marble floors shone like mirrors and chandeliers sparkled like captive stars. My parents cornered me there, not with congratulations or affection, but with an ultimatum. Surrender the home I had earned so that my sister could play out her new fantasy of family life. Mother's voice cut first, sweet and venomous. Selfish children don't deserve success. Father's followed, sharp as a gavel. Your sister's children need real homes. As if her hypothetical children deserved more than the years of backbreaking sacrifice I had poured into my career. Sabrina herself merely smirked, savoring the moment. Sure, she was finally about to get what she'd always claimed was hers. I didn't cry. Instead, I felt the decision crystallize inside me like ice. Revenge, clean and permanent. The kind of justice that silences even the boldest voices. The champagne flute trembled in my hand as I watched Sabrina glide across the ballroom, her custom Vera Wang gown flowing behind her like liquid silver. 200 guests had come to witness her fairy tale wedding to Derek, a brilliant investment banker she'd met only 8 months earlier. The irony was almost bitter on my tongue. She was marrying for money while trying to strip me of what I'd earned. My name is Vivian Morrison, 32 years old, and everything I have I clawed for. While Sabrina spent her 20s flitting between lovers and finding herself, I was pulling all-nighters at law school, surviving on vending machine dinners, and grinding through 70-hour weeks at a top Manhattan firm. 5 years ago, I gambled my entire future on opening my own practice specializing in business litigation. The risk paid off spectacularly. Last year, I closed a settlement so massive it allowed me to buy my dream, a 3-bedroom penthouse with a view of Central Park. Now that same home was being treated as communal family property. Vivian, darling, you look radiant, my mother Diane cooed as she approached, wearing the smile she only pulled out when she wanted something. Her silver hair was immaculate, her navy dress probably more expensive than most people's rent. We need to have a little family chat. My stomach dropped. Family chats in the Morrison household were never good news. Mom, it's Sabrina's wedding day. Can this wait? Actually, no, it couldn't. My father Robert appeared beside her, the fitted tuxedo doing nothing to soften the judgment in his eyes. At 58, he still commanded a room, but the look he gave me was the same disappointed glare I'd been collecting since childhood. We've been discussing your living situation, he began. My living situation? I set my champagne down, kneading both hands. What about my living situation? Well, honey, Mom's voice slipped into that syrupy tone that always preceded bad news. You know how Sabrina and Derek are starting their family? They're going to need more space than Derek's little apartment. They're not even pregnant yet, I replied, blinking. But they will be soon, Sabrina chimed in, suddenly at my elbow, her new husband's arm around her waist. At 28, she was striking. Auburn hair, green eyes, a smile honed for cameras, but there was calculation under every gesture. We're planning to start trying right away. Congratulations, I murmured cautiously. I'm sure you'll find a lovely place to raise your family. We already have, Sabrina said brightly. We want your penthouse. The words hit like a punch. Excuse me? Now, Vivian, before you get all defensive, Dad's voice turned patronizing, his favorite trick when he thought he was being reasonable. Think about this logically. You're a single woman. You don't need all that space. Sabrina and Derek, on the other hand, are starting a family. They need room for children, for their future. You want me to give up my home? My voice shook with disbelief. Not give up, Mom corrected hastily. Trade. You could take Derek's apartment. It's perfectly adequate for one person, a 600-foot studio in Queens? I asked bluntly. You want me to trade my 3-bedroom penthouse on the Upper West Side for a studio apartment in Queens? Vivian, don't be so dramatic, Sabrina said sweetly. It's not like you even use all that space. What do you need 3 bedrooms for? You don't even have a boyfriend. The jab landed exactly as intended. Sabrina had always been the untouchable one, the bold daughter, the golden child. Dropping out of college to find herself? brave, bouncing between careers and men, exploring her options. When I graduated summa cum laude from law school, they wrung their hands about me, working too hard. I need those bedrooms because it's my home, I said, my voice rising. I earned it, I paid for it, and I'm not giving it up. Vivian Elizabeth Morrison. Mom's tone snapped sharp. That is incredibly selfish. Family comes first. Always family. I let out a laugh that wasn't really a laugh. Family? Have any of you ever treated me like family? When I needed help studying for the bar, you called me antisocial. When I built my practice, you accused me of being reckless. When I finally succeeded, you pretended it was an accident. That's not true, Dad muttered, but even he didn't sound convinced. Isn't it? I asked softly. When was the last time any of you even asked about my life, my career, my happiness? But the minute I have something you want, suddenly I'm family again. Sabrina stepped closer, her face flushed. You know what your problem is, Vivian? You've always been jealous of me. You can't stand that I'm getting married, that I'm going to have the family you'll never have. I'm not jealous of you, Sabrina, I said steady. I'm disappointed in you. Disappointed? She laughed, the sound brittle. Are you disappointed in me? I'm the one getting married. I'll be the one giving Mom and Dad grandkids. What have you done besides make money? I've built a life, I said quietly. I've worked hard for everything I have. I've never asked any of you for anything. Well, now we're asking something of you, Dad said firmly. Your sister needs that penthouse more than you do. It's time you did something for your family. Robert's right, Mom added, voice rising. Selfish children don't deserve success. You've had everything handed to you, and now you won't even help your own sister. The accusation was so absurd I almost laughed. Handed to me? I worked 3 jobs to pay for law school. I lived on ramen for 2 years building my practice. I've never asked you for a dime. Your sister's kids need real homes. Dad boomed across the ballroom, drawing stairs. Not some cramped apartment. They deserve better. They're not even conceived yet, I protested, but I could feel the tide turning. They were experts at making me feel guilty for my own achievements. Sabrina moved closer, her voice low and venomous. You know what, Vivian? I'm done pretending to care about your feelings. I've always known I was the better daughter. I'm prettier, more likable, the one who makes Mom and Dad proud, and now I'm finally getting what I've always deserved. The words hung like a dare. Around us, guests began to circle, sensing a spectacle. Their conversations faded as they locked onto our little family theater. And what exactly do you deserve, Sabrina? I asked softly. Everything, she said simply. The penthouse, the respect, the life you've been hoarding for yourself. I deserve it all, and I'm finally going to get it over my dead body, I murmured. The slap came so fast I didn't see it. Her fingers cracked against my cheek like a gunshot, the sound cutting through the ballroom. 200 guests froze, their chatter dying mid-sentence. Then came the laughter. First a few snickers from Sabrina's friends, then a ripple spreading like wildfire. People pointed, whispered behind manicured hands. Did you see that? Finally, someone put Vivian in her place. My cheek burned, but I did not cry. I would not give them that. I stood still under the weight of 200 eyes, listening to their mocking laughter and judgment. Sabrina smiled, triumphant. Maybe now you'll start acting like a real sister. My parents stood behind her, silent, not apologizing, not intervening, just watching, as though waiting for me to surrender. That was the moment it clicked. This had never really been about a penthouse. It was about control, about keeping me in the role they had assigned me since childhood. The outsider, the one who worked but never mattered, the disappointment who could be mined for resources but never respected. Only this time, they'd made a fatal mistake. They had humiliated me not in the privacy of a living room, but in front of 200 witnesses, including some of the most prominent legal and business figures in New York. People who knew my name, who respected my work, and who understood exactly what I was capable of. My hands were steady, almost eerily so, as I reached into my bag and drew out my phone. Rage moved through my veins like a living thing, but my fingers were calm, precise. Without a word, I began to type. Vivian, what are you doing? My mother asked, her voice gone thin. I didn't answer. Around us, the laughter started to falter. The guests noticed I wasn't crumbling the way they expected. I wasn't crying or running for the bathroom. I was doing something else entirely. "Vivian, put that away," my father hissed. "You're embarrassing yourself." "No," I said quietly, still typing. "I'm not the one who should be embarrassed." Sabrina lunged to snatch the phone from my hands, but I sidestepped her neatly and hit send just as her fingertips brushed the screen. "What did you do?" she demanded. I lifted my eyes, meeting hers, then my parents, then the crowds. I chose the kind of revenge that silences people forever. Their expressions, confusion shading into alarm, were almost funny. They had expected me to fold or to weep. They had not expected me to fight back. My phone buzzed once, then again. Then, in a rapid-fire staccato as replies poured in. "Vivian, what did you send?" My mother's voice climbed into a near shriek, panic cutting through the brittle elegance. For the first time all night, I smiled. An actual smile, sharp and clean. "A little update," I said lightly. "To my group chat. You know, the one with all my lawyer friends, the journalists I've worked with, the business contacts who actually run this city." Sabrina's face drained of color. "What kind of update?" "Oh, nothing much. Just a recap of tonight's festivities. How my family demanded I hand over my penthouse to my sister and her brand new husband. How my mother screamed that selfish children don't deserve success. How my father declared that my sister's hypothetical children needed real homes more than I do. And how my sister slapped me in front of 200 people because I wouldn't surrender my life's work." The ballroom had gone dead silent. Even the string quartet had stopped playing. "And," I added, my voice carrying clearly over the hush, "I mentioned how everyone laughed when it happened. How funny you all thought it was to watch a successful woman be put in her place by her family." "Vivian, delete that right now," Dad growled, his tone like a threat. I shrugged. "Delete what? The truth? Too late anyway." "You know how social media works, Dad. Once it's out there forever." My phone now vibrated constantly. Messages of support, of fury on my behalf, of requests for interviews. The story was spreading faster than even I had anticipated. "You vindictive," Sabrina began, her voice breaking. "No," I cut her off softly. "I'm just done being your doormat." Derek, silent until now, finally stepped forward. "Vivian, maybe we can work something out. We didn't mean for things to go this far." I looked at him with genuine pity. "You married into the wrong family, Derek. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into." His brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "I mean," I said evenly, "that your new wife and in-laws just made some very powerful enemies. Do you know who Judge Margaret Chen is? She was here tonight. She's already texted me, expressing her disgust at your wife's behavior." Sabrina went from pale to sickly green. Judge Chen was one of the most respected jurists in New York, famous for her zero-tolerance stance on entitled conduct. "And David Rodriguez from the Times," I went on. "He's been circling me all evening trying to get an interview about my latest case." He saw everything. He's already asking if I want to comment on how successful women are treated by their families. "Vivian, stop," my mother pleaded. "You're going to ruin Sabrina's wedding." "No," I said calmly. "Sabrina ruined her own wedding when she decided to assault me in front of 200 people." "It was just a slap," Sabrina snapped, desperation creeping into her voice. "You're being dramatic." "It was an assault, Sabrina. And it was witnessed by a judge, a reporter, and at least a dozen attorneys. You want to know what I deserve? I deserve not to be physically attacked by my own family." My phone rang. I glanced at the screen and my smile deepened. "Oh, this is interesting. Amanda Walsh from Walsh & Associates. You know, the law firm that handles high-profile reputation management cases? She's offering her services pro bono. In New York society, Amanda Walsh was practically synonymous with crisis control. If she was calling me unprompted, the story had already jumped far beyond my personal network." "Vivian, please," Sabrina whispered, her bravado gone. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit you. I was just emotional." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry there are consequences. You're sorry you can't just take from me without pushback. But you're not sorry I am, she insisted. I'll apologize publicly. I'll tell everyone it was a mistake. Too late, I said softly. The damage is done. And it was. I could see it in the faces around us. The laughter had died. Uneasy whispers replaced it. People who moments ago had found my humiliation amusing now stared at Sabrina with open disgust. In a city where reputation was currency, the exchange rate had just plummeted for my sister. What do you want? My father asked finally, his voice flat, defeat creeping in. I want you to leave me alone, I said simply. All of you. Stop treating me like an ATM. Stop expecting me to sacrifice my happiness for Sabrina's convenience. Stop pretending family means anything to you beyond what you can extract from me. Vivian, we're still family, my mother murmured weakly. No, I said, my voice steady and clear. We're not. Family doesn't demand you give up your home. Family doesn't scream at you in public. Family doesn't assault you at a wedding. Family supports each other, celebrates each other's successes, and treats each other with respect. You have never done any of those things for me. My phone buzzed again, a sharp vibration that felt louder than the ballroom's hush. This time it was a text from my assistant, Vivian. TMZ is calling. They're asking if you're the lawyer who got assaulted at the Ritz-Carlton wedding. What should I tell them? I lifted my phone high so everyone could see the message glowing on the screen. TMZ is calling, I announced flatly. This is about to become very public. Sabrina's composure cracked. Her perfect wedding makeup streaked down her cheeks in glossy trails. Vivian, please, she begged, her voice wobbling. This is my wedding day. Don't ruin it. I'm not ruining anything, Sabrina, I said quietly. I'm just refusing to be your victim anymore. What can we do? Derek's tone was almost panicked, his eyes darting from me to the guests who were already slipping toward the exits. How do we fix this? You can't fix this, I answered, my voice low but steady. This is who you all are. This is what you do. You take and take until there's nothing left, and when someone finally says no, you call it betrayal and attack them for it. Around us, the glittering ballroom was fracturing. Guests invented polite excuses and drifted away, eager to distance themselves from the imploding spectacle. Sabrina's dream wedding had become a social disaster no one wanted to witness. The penthouse is mine, I said almost gently. I earned it. I paid for it. And I'm keeping it. If you want a nice place to live, Sabrina, get a job. Work for it like I did. I can't believe you're doing this, she whispered. I can't believe it took me this long, I replied. I turned to go, but my father's hand clamped around my arm. Vivian, wait. We can work this out. Family counseling, mediation, whatever you want. I looked at his fingers, gripping me, then into his eyes. Let go of me, Dad. He released me immediately, understanding on some primal level how bad it would look to restrain me after what had just happened. There's nothing to work out, I told them. You made your choice tonight. You chose Sabrina over me, like you always have. You chose her convenience over my hard work, her demands over my boundaries. And when I said no, you watched her assault me instead of defending me. We didn't know she was going to hit you, my mother said weakly, but you didn't stop her. You didn't apologize. You didn't even check if I was okay. You just stood there. My heels clicked sharply against the marble as I walked toward the doors. Behind me came Sabrina's sobbing, my mother's frantic whispers, my father's angry muttering. I didn't look back until I reached the threshold. The ballroom was unrecognizable now. Little clusters of guests whispering, pointing, edging toward the exits. The bride in tears, her makeup a ruin, the groom stunned, my parents trying in vain to contain the chaos they had unleashed. You know the funny thing, I said, my voice ringing through the nearly empty hall. I would have helped you if you just asked. If you'd come to me with respect, treated me like family instead of a bank account, I might have even helped with the down payment. But you didn't. You demanded my home, screamed at me, insulted me, and when I said no, you hit me. So now you get nothing. The silence was thunderous. I walked out of the Ritz-Carlton with my head high, leaving behind the wreckage of my sister's wedding and my family's reputation. The elevator ride felt endless. Even as the doors closed, I could still hear muffled sobs, chairs scraping against marble, and the murmured voices of guests desperate to flee the scene. By the time I reached the lobby, my phone hadn't stopped vibrating. Each notification felt like a jolt of relief and dread mixed together. The night manager, a distinguished man in his 50s, stepped forward, concern in his eyes. "Miss Morrison, is everything all right?" We heard there was some commotion upstairs. "I'm fine, thank you," I said. "Just family drama." He nodded politely, but I saw curiosity flicker behind his professional mask. By morning, the story would be all over the hotel's back-channel gossip, then everywhere else. In New York's upper circles, scandals spread like wildfire. Outside, the crisp October air hit my face like a slap. Strange, considering I'd already been slapped tonight. I stood on the sidewalk for a long moment, watching traffic slide along Central Park South, trying to understand what I had just done. Part of me still couldn't believe it. The other part wondered why it had taken so long. My phone rang again. Riley, my dearest friend, a prosecutor I'd met during my first year at the firm. "Vivian, what the hell is going on?" she demanded. "I just saw your group text and now there are photos all over Instagram. Did Sabrina really hit you?" "She did." I started walking toward the subway, adrenaline still humming in my veins. "Holy, are you okay? Do you want me to come over?" "I'm fine, Jess." "Actually, I'm better than fine. I think I'm finally free. Free from pretending they're my family. Free from feeling guilty about my success. Free from walking on eggshells every time I'm around them." There was a pause. "Vivian, you know this is going to get messy, right? Really messy." "I know, but I'm tired of being the one who cleans up their messes. Let them figure it out for once." "What about your parents? They're going to be devastated." I stopped walking. "Jess, they stood there and watched their daughter assault me in public. They demanded I give up my home for their golden child. They called me selfish for wanting to keep what I earned. When exactly am I supposed to start caring about their feelings?" "You're right," she said softly. "I'm sorry. I know how much family means to you. Family means everything to me, but they stopped being my family a long time ago. I was just too blind to see it. After I hung up with Riley, I chose to walk home instead of taking the subway. I needed the time, the movement to process what had happened and what would come next. 40 blocks from Midtown to my Upper West Side condo, 40 blocks to breathe. As I walked, my phone buzzed again and again. Messages from coworkers who'd been at the wedding, offering shock and support. Friends who'd seen the viral posts. Journalists who had somehow gotten my number, all wanting a quote. And then a message from Patricia Winters, the senior partner at my old firm. We had parted on good terms when I left to start my own practice, but we rarely spoke now. Patricia's message blinked across my screen. "Vivian, I only found out about this tonight. I want you to know you have my full support. What happened to you was terrible, and I applaud you for standing up for yourself. Please call if you have any questions." For the first time all evening, tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. Not of pain or humiliation, but of gratitude. Here was someone who owed me nothing, who barely knew my family, and yet reached out simply because it was the right thing to do. It made me realize just how warped my family's portrait of me had been. They had painted me as cold, selfish, obsessed with money and achievement. Yet the hundreds of messages now flooding my phone told a different story. The real one. The story of a woman who mentored young associates, took on pro bono cases for domestic violence survivors, volunteered at legal aid clinics, and still worked 80-hour weeks to build a life from scratch. By the time I reached my building, there were more than 200 unread messages and missed calls. My doorman, Luis, who had been manning this lobby for 15 years and had seen me through law school meltdowns, breakups, career changes, and countless late nights, stared at me with worry etched on his face. "Miss Vivian, are you okay?" "You look like you've had a rough night." "I've had better nights, Luis," I said with a tired smile. "But I think things are going to get better from here." "That's good to hear," he said softly. "You deserve all the happiness in the world." In the mirrored elevator walls, I finally took a long look at myself. My cheek still glowed crimson where Sabrina's hand had landed. My hair was mussed, my makeup smudged. But my eyes were bright and steady, the eyes of a woman who had gone through battle and emerged standing. Inside my apartment, the familiar space felt like a sanctuary. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a sweeping view of the city, lights glittering like 1,000 tiny stars. This was my space, my achievement, my home, and no one was going to take it from me. I poured a glass of wine and sank into my couch, finally letting myself scroll through the social media storm. Someone, perhaps thinking it was funny at the time, had filmed Sabrina slapping me and posted it to Instagram. The clip had already been shared hundreds of times. Comments ranged from outrage to admiration. "This is disgusting. Who hit someone at a wedding?" "That lawyer is my hero for refusing to back down." Assault is assault, family or not. But it wasn't just strangers weighing in. Names from New York's legal world, business heavyweights, even a few celebrities were posting about it. The narrative was already outgrowing Sabrina's wedding, becoming something larger, something symbolic. My phone rang again. Jenna, my assistant, calling from her personal line. "Vivian, I'm so sorry to bother you on a Saturday night, but reporters have been calling nonstop. The office voicemail's full, and they're ringing my personal phone now." "What kind of reporters?" "Everyone, local news, Page 6, TMZ, even CNN. This story's everywhere." I closed my eyes, exhaustion suddenly heavy. "What are they asking?" "They want to know if you're pressing charges, if you're planning to sue, what your family was like before this. Some are even asking about your law practice and your dating life." Of course they were. A successful single woman attacked by her married sister. It ticked every tabloid box. "Jenna, I need you to draft a statement. Keep it simple and professional. Something like, Morrison is grateful for the outpouring of support she's received. She's focusing on her work and her clients at this time and won't be making further public comments about this private family matter." Should I mention anything about pressing charges? I hesitated. I hadn't even considered charges. Sabrina's slap had been meant to humiliate more than harm. Yet the question reminded me there were options I hadn't explored. "No mention of charges either way," I said finally. "Let's keep our options open." After hanging up, I realized how hungry I was. I'd eaten nothing at the wedding, my stomach too knotted with dread. I ordered Thai food and began to truly take stock of the night's fallout. By late evening, the story had exploded across social media. The slap video was being reposted by major gossip accounts, racking up thousands of views within hours. Longer think pieces were already appearing. A feminist blogger wrote about how women are expected to dim their success for family harmony. A family therapist dissected poisonous dynamics. A legal analyst quoted New York's assault statutes. My personal crisis had turned into a larger conversation about gender, family, success, and boundaries. Meanwhile, Sabrina's Instagram, once filled with joy and wedding photos, was now buried under angry comments. People called her entitled, abusive, spoiled. Her wedding hashtag, #Sabrina and Derek Forever, was being used to circulate the video of her hitting me. For a flicker of a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered her triumphant sneer as she struck me, and the sympathy evaporated. My dinner arrived. As I ate pad thai, calls began coming from unexpected corners of my life. My college roommate, a cousin long ostracized by the family, even my high school guidance counselor, all reaching out with support. But the most striking call came from Judge Margaret Chen, who had attended the wedding. "Vivian, I hope you don't mind me calling," she began. "I got your number from the court directory. I wanted to personally apologize for what I witnessed tonight." "Judge Chen, you don't need to apologize. You didn't do anything wrong." I should have intervened. I should have said something. Instead, I just stood there like everyone else. "You were a guest at a wedding, not a referee at a family fight?" "Perhaps. But I've been thinking about it all evening, and I can't shake the feeling. That wasn't just family drama, Vivian. That was a pattern. Emotional abuse, financial abuse, and now physical abuse. I've seen it too many times in my courtroom." Judge Chen's words landed like a strike to the chest. I'd been so focused on the slap and the penthouse demands that I hadn't stepped back to see the larger pattern. But she was right. This wasn't one bad night. This was the end point of years of conditioning, being treated like a family ATM, having my accomplishments dismissed, being made to feel guilty for succeeding. I never thought of it that way, I murmured. Abuse isn't always obvious, when she said, especially from family. We normalize what we'd never accept from strangers. Tonight you saw it. The financial pressure, the public humiliation, the physical violence. That's textbook family abuse. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment for a long time staring at the city lights. Was it really abuse? The word felt too heavy. They'd never hit me before tonight, never tried to control my day-to-day movements, but they had belittled my achievements, demanded my sacrifice, and guilted me into giving until I had nothing left. And when I finally said no, they mocked and struck me in front of hundreds of witnesses. Maybe Judge Chen was right. Maybe it was abuse, just in a form I hadn't been taught to recognize. The realization was both liberating and crushing. Liberating because it validated my choice to walk away. Crushing because it meant admitting my family had never loved me for who I was, only for what I could provide. As the night stretched on, I found myself almost grateful for Sabrina's slap. It had been the shock I needed, the last straw that gave me permission to stop enabling them. Without it, I might have continued playing the role of dutiful doormat for years. By 2 a.m., I was exhausted but strangely calm. I'd silenced my phone to stop the constant buzzing and was just heading to bed when the building's intercom buzzed. On the screen, Sabrina stood outside in her wedding dress, mascara streaming down her face. She looked shattered, desperate. "Please," she whispered into the camera. For a heartbeat, my chest ached. The sister I'd grown up with was standing outside my building, humiliated, pleading. But then I remembered her victorious expression after she slapped me, the entitlement in her voice as she claimed she deserved everything I had built, the laughter of 200 people as I stood alone. I switched off the monitor and went to bed. The next morning, page 6 ran the headline, "Lawyer assaulted by sister at Ritz wedding." Beneath it, a photo of Sabrina smacking me. The article chronicled everything. My family's demand for the penthouse, the public confrontation, the assault. By lunchtime, it was trending. Hashtags like #wedding-assault and #DarFamilyGreed filled timelines. Thousands of strangers were sharing their own stories of entitled relatives and praising my refusal to back down. The fallout was swift. That afternoon, Sabrina's new mother-in-law rescinded her Christmas invitation. Derek's firm launched an internal ethics review after clients expressed alarm. My parents' country club quietly suspended their membership. My revenge had never been violent or illegal. It was simply the truth, amplified by social media and the relationships I had spent years building. Sometimes the most devastating weapon is showing people exactly who someone is. A week later, Sabrina called, sobbing. She'd been fired from her boutique PR job as clients canceled their contracts. Derek was facing an ethics investigation. Their honeymoon had been cut short by photographers. "Vivian, please," she wept. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen." "You meant to humiliate me," I said quietly. "You meant to force me out of my home. You meant to put me in my place in front of 200 people. The only thing you didn't mean was to face the consequences. I'll do anything. Apologize publicly. Tell everyone I was wrong." "Sabrina, stop." I was standing by my floor-to-ceiling windows, looking at the Central Park skyline I had fought so hard to keep. "You can't apologize your way out of this. You can't take back what you did, and you can't demand forgiveness just because you're finally facing consequences." "But we're family," she whispered. "Family doesn't assault each other, Sabrina. Family doesn't demand sacrifices they're unwilling to make themselves. Family doesn't laugh when one of their own is humiliated." I know, I messed up, but please help me fix this." "I can't fix this for you," I said softly. "This is yours to live with." She hung up crying. I never heard from her again. 6 months later, Sabrina and Derek were divorced. The stress of the scandal and their unemployment had cracked their marriage before it began. She moved back in with our parents, who were living through their own social exile. My father's business floundered as customers distanced themselves from the family name, now synonymous with entitlement and selfishness. Meanwhile, my practice thrived. The attention, initially unsettling, became a badge of honor. I was known as the lawyer who refused to be bullied, even by her own blood. New clients sought me out because of my refusal to cave. I never got my family back. In truth, I'd never really had them. I'd had a group of people who viewed me as a resource, not a daughter. The penthouse stayed mine. One spare bedroom became a home office. The other a guest room for friends who respected me for who I was, not for what I could give. The space Sabrina claimed I didn't need became filled with relationships of my own choosing. Sometimes I wonder if I could have handled it differently, if there was a way to hold my boundaries without hurting them. But then I remember the sound of that slap echoing across the ballroom, the laughter of 200 people, Sabrina's triumphant smirk. I chose the kind of revenge that permanently silences people, not through cruelty, but through truth. And it worked. They never asked me for anything again. In the end, I learned that the best revenge isn't always striking back. Sometimes it's refusing to let them get away with it. Sometimes it's simply standing up and saying, "No, you don't get to treat me like this anymore." And sometimes that alone is enough to change everything.